Yeah, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the July 28th meeting of the Public Works Committee of the Albany County Legislature. We are meeting again over Zoom. We hope that you and your families are staying healthy and well throughout our pandemic. Would the clerk please call the roll?
I can call the roll, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bruschi, forgive me. Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Cleary.
Here.
Mr. Fine.
He's muted.
Sam's muted. Mr. Reinhardt.
Here.
Mr. Peter.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Bergdorf.
Here.
Mr. Burley. Mr. Purley.
Mr. Purley will be excused.
8 present.
Thank you very much. All right, our first order of business is item 1, approving the previous meeting's minutes.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Peter, second by Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Great, thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to our second item of business is for local law D. So we're going to table this at the request of the member pending the local hearing that we have happening later today. For our current business, item number 3, authorizing the submission of a grant application regarding the Capital District's Trails Plan Implementation Grant. We have a representative to speak to this one.
Hi there, it's Lisa.
Lisa.
Yes, hello. We're requesting approval to enter into a grant agreement with CDTC to explore continuations of a path off of our Albany County rail trail. The letter that was submitted mentions 3 different alternatives. Subsequent to composing the letter, I met with Jim Merkel, our traffic engineer, and we decided that really of the 3 items that were proposed, number 2 would be the most feasible application that we would put forth, potentially exploring the ability to connect a trail from our Voorheesville location at the end of our rail trail up through Route 155, which is State Farm Road, traveling over New Carner Road to Watervliet Shaker, and ending up in Colony. And so what we're asking for is the ability to apply for a grant. It would be a grant up to $75,000, of which we would have to have an in-kind contribution of time and money. The money portion would be up to 25% of the grant award.
Outstanding.
Are there any questions?
Questions to members? I see Mr. Reinhardt's hand.
Yeah, Lisa. So did you say in your intro just now that you've kind of decided to take the other 2 options off the table as something worthy to be studied?
Well, the first option is continuation along the rail bed through the village of Altamont. We didn't think that that was feasible considering it's an active rail bed at this time. It could be studied. I mean, if it potentially was abandoned, then obviously it would make sense to move forward with that. But it seems that to me, it may not be a great use of funds considering it's an active trail at this time.
Now that means you mean the rail
an
cars
active railroad, rather.
The rail cars that are being stored on it. Is that the issue?
Well, from what I understand, it's actually active.
Oh, you mean trains are actually running on it?
Yes. Yep.
Well, I have to say, Jeff Purley and I are both disappointed. We were very excited about that idea of using the rail bed to get out to Altamont and tying in with Thatcher Park and a bunch of other, eco-tourism things up there in that direction. But if it can't be done now, then that's always something for the future, I suppose. But I did have a question, which are a couple questions. I think they might still be relevant, although you've already narrowed it down to 1 from the 3. But this project that we're going to study, will it be in competition with all the other proposals submitted from around the state for similar, both for funding for the feasibility study as well as implementation money. So this is, it's part of the statewide rail plan. And so we're looking at this in competition with all those other potential proposals from around the state.
You just hop in the camera that well.
As far as the study monies go, so we want to make it as feasible and competitive as possible. And so, yes, we are in competition with other municipalities.
Legislator Reinhardt, I just want to jump in because I worked with Commissioner Raimondo on this, and this is a grant from CDTC, so it is regional, it's not statewide. So it's specifically a trails grant. It is about 2 years ago, CDTC came out with something called the Capital Region or Capital District Trails Plan, where they outlined how can we make the various great trails that we have here more interconnected. And so to your earlier point, extending to Voorheesville is certainly part of that, and or beyond Voorheesville rather, is part of that plan. But as Commissioner Raimondo mentioned, as it's still in active use, it's just at this juncture not practical to move forward with that until that situation changes. But another trail that was outlined, or connection that was outlined in the Capital District Trails Plan, was off of our rail trail out towards Voorheesville, connecting over through Guilderland in that direction and moving into Colonies. So obviously this is early stages, but it's a feasibility study to look at, what's possible. Where can you do trail? Where can you do bike lanes? Or where is it just, existing sidewalk, and looking at making, as you, I know, are well aware, more walkable and bikeable and alternatives to driving where possible.
Right. I will ask this question, even though I originally was thinking about this in the context of the extension out to Altamont, but it would also be relevant to the one project that we are looking to study further. And that has to do with in the plan that the documents that were attached to this item, the Capital District Trails Plan implementation. They talked about the priority matrix or prioritization matrix, and they listed 4 different criteria there. But then just above that on page 2, they talked about the regional economic impact analysis of the alternatives. And I'm just kind of wondering, how would you compare this project versus another one where you might have certain metrics that go along with the prioritization matrix, but another project might not have as many points, I'll call it, for that, but it might be part of a larger regional strategy that a community has. And how do you balance those two things? In other words, like project-specific numbers and benefits versus how that project might fit in with a larger strategy for a region. Now, when I say region here, what I mean is not the entire county, but like, it could have been Altamont, it could be Colony, it could be Guilderland, in terms of how this specific trail extension fits into, several other things that community wants to do for tourism or for economic development, whatever. How do you balance those two perspectives on how you look at it and kind of where you draw the line around the box that you're analyzing?
That's a good question. And that would be, I think, really more about, that would be what we would be paying for with the study. From my perspective, coming up with locations of the plan, we were trying to come up with areas that we could get a lot of bang for not so much buck. For example, 155 State Farm Road, we're going to be doing improvements along New Carner Road. And so that's going to be a project on our tip. And so that's already something that's programmed in our capital plan. And so we can be potentially connecting, Voorheesville to Guilderland and Albany out 155 in that direction. And, picking up all of those towns, even along a portion of the state roadway. And perhaps we could get, maybe the state or other municipalities would maybe want to chip in on the in-kind funding for that. So, I mean, we were trying to take advantage of roads that we're doing improvements on already, and as well as Waterville Shaker would be a part of this too. We're going to be implementing some kind of a bike path / pedestrian bike walkway into our Waterville Shaker Road project. And so we thought, because we have, we have plans to make improvements to these roads, and that they're connecting many different communities, that it would be potentially looked upon as a very good candidate.
So you're obviously explicitly thinking in terms of potential partners and co-funding opportunities.
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Right now, what we're trying to do, we're looking for authorization to apply for the grant. If we get authorization to apply, we have more brainstorming to do, but we think that the idea of not just making like a small connector, potentially, studying a broad area might give us some buy-in from others.
Yeah.
I know that Mr. Bergdorf has had his hand up for a while. I'll call on him.
Thank you, Nate. Lisa, you said the magic word when you said colonnade.
Yep.
So, obviously, we have two capital projects on Waterville Shaker Road from Western Avenue to New Corner, and New Corner to St. Creek. Would this potentially, this alternative, explore both of those extensions?
It does. It would go, we're proposing to study going up 155, past the Pine Bush, up over to Waterville Shaker Road, turning right at Memory Gardens, going up 155, Waterville Shaker Road, in that direction, and connecting over by the Albany Airport through Amley Pond, and potentially going over Del Sandro Boulevard and connecting to the roundabout on Albany Shaker Road. So it could potentially a wide area.
Good. So it could go all the way to the circle at Maxwell Road.
Correct. Yep.
And Mr. Bergdorf, if you look at I think there's a map in the attachment of the
I saw that. I was having a little trouble orienting myself to it. But.
Yeah, I think it's the C on there is sort of that crossing over connector that we're talking about here.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I mean, if there's, I think that's a wonderful option.
Although that one has some work to do. It looks like we have 0 miles open to the public on C of 15.2, but hopefully with these funds, we can accelerate that timeline.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I recognize Mr. Burley.
I didn't receive the invite, so I signed on late. I signed on just as Legislator Reinhardt was asking his question. I wonder if someone could just provide on this particular topic, which is of course of great interest to me from Altamont, if someone could just provide a brief summary of what was discussed prior to Legislative Reinhardt's question.
He was the very first question. I know it seems like it was a long time ago, but he was the first one to ask.
I think Lisa needs to repeat what she said to begin.
Sure. So the proposals, there were 3 proposals listed, and from my understanding is that the continuation along the rail bed to the village of Altamont at this time is not a feasible alternative because there's active trains that run on that bed at this time. So it wouldn't really make sense to study that. Once the trains become inactive, then it would be a no-brainer.
Jeff, I've already
But at this-
expressed our displeasure at that, but that's okay. It's understandable reason.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
Mr. O'Brien,
Can I make a motion to move this, please?
motion by Mr. O'Brien, second by Mr. Peter. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. Hearing none, it's unanimous. Let's move on to item number 4, which is going to be amending the 2020 Department of Public Works budget for CHIPS.
hi. Yes, we're requesting legislature's approval to accept state fiscal year 2019-2020 CHIPS funding in the amount of $5.258 million. There's an accompanying letter in the backup material that shows a table of the 2020-2021 apportionments. It's the apportionment, the cumulative rollover balance, and the total balance of our CHIPS, PAVE New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery monies. Each year, DOT informs us of our yearly apportionment and rollover funds remaining in our previous year's CHIPS, PAVE New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery accounts, and then we amend our budget so that these funds are available for the current year's CHIPS projects. So this year, we're planning on spending our CHIPS money as usual on our hauling and placing contract with Callahan Industries, and our cold and place recycling contract, which we typically bond for this, but we had a buildup of rollover funding, which was extremely fortunate because it enabled us to move forward with our cold and place recycling project this year when we otherwise would have had to forego it because we did not go out to bond for it. So upon acceptance of the funds, we request the legislature's approval to amend our 2020 budget by increasing our bridge and road repair line in the amount of $1.728 million, which is the difference between the 2019 budget revenue line of the $3.53 million and the total award amount of $5.258 million.
Any questions from the members? Mr. Bergdorf and Mr. Reinhardt.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hi there.
Okay, my question is, I'll start with an assumption. I think from the materials I looked at that we're talking about entirely state money here, and we're rolling over state money. But my question then is this: given the incredibly bad economic situation that we're in the middle of and not out of yet, is it possible? I guess I'm looking at a downside risk here. Is it possible that we could go ahead, move this money forward, move it, reallocate it and all that, planning on the state giving us these funds. And then after we've contracted for this work with the 2 contractors, the state pulls the money from us and we're stuck having to use, county money to execute the contracts. Is that a possibility here? Or do we know that this money is firm and we're not going to lose it in the middle of some, state managing of
Right.
the shortfalls?
That's a really good question. And to tell you the truth, we had to hold off on our hauling and placing project, which we normally just go ahead with starting in the spring, because the state delayed their award letter to everyone. And so when they finally did send the award letter, there was a caveat in it. They gave us our award, but they said that up to 20% of the total award could be withheld. And that's in the letter that is attached in the backup. So basically, we're making sure that we don't spend up to 20%. We're spending only up to 80% of the award that the state is granting us. So based on, all of the communications I've had with other counties and with my contact from the state, we can count on 80% of the award amount. We may or may not get the remaining 20%.
So we could potentially spend that last 20 at the end of the contract, assuming that the money comes through from the state.
Well, what we would do is we just won't, pardon?
Lisa, I'll interject here. It's Sean. Sorry, Mr. Reinhardt. I just want to make it very clear that once we get to that 20%, we would be looking at it very carefully to make sure we were getting our money back. We
Well,
would not be
right.
outlaying.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is potentially we could spend all of it, but we're not going to go beyond 80% until we have a clear signal from the state that that last 20% is coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, right. Our contracts don't amount to 100%. They're less than 80%. So it would be a rollover situation.
All right. Okay. All right.
Mr. Bergdorf, did you have something?
Yes, Lisa, I was going to ask a variation of the same question. Usually at the end of the year, we get a top off of CHIPS money. Did we get that already?
What we got, we just received reimbursement, our last reimbursement amount from last year. So everything that we spent on our hauling and placing project and our sweeper, we've been reimbursed for.
So you got 100%,
So,
you got 100% dollar for dollar for 2019.
well, we got 100% of what we spent, but we didn't spend everything that we received in 2019. We had a rollover amount. Okay?
Okay, so how much has been rolled over?
The rollover amount is, we can see it on the attached sheet. Hold on a second. On the DOT sheet in the attachment, it shows the rollover balances for CHIPS, Pave New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery. And I would have to total them because they're listed separately. But there's approximately, it shows approximately a $2 million rollover. However, that rollover did not take into account the purchase of the sweeper because of the timing of the fiscal year. So you have to deduct like $270,000 from this amount. And it also didn't take into account a retainage that we hold payment on. There was a retainage for our hauling and placing, and I would have to look up that amount, but it's to the tune of like, $75,000. So
I guess my question is generic. The amount of rollover money for 2019, is that also subject to a potential 20% clawback from the state?
I think it is. I think the total amount could be. So we're taking the total and assuming that it includes the rollover balance. Yes. Because basically the state, if we spend that, the state, we're going to err on the side of caution.
Okay. So you're going to hold back 20% of the holdback for 2019, or the top up of your unexpended balance of 2019, and 20% of what they have indicated you should get for 2020.
Yep. Yes.
What are those two numbers generally total, plus or minus? I'm not looking for an exact figure.
Well, it's interesting. So we usually have, we try to keep a balance, like a rollover balance. And we had a large one last year. We typically don't have that large of a one. Usually it's under $1 million, like $500,000 or $600,000 for a rollover. This year, though, we're going to spend all of it except the 20%. So you're asking, what are we leaving on the table from last year?
Yeah, what is our if the state does not get any federal money and things look like they look today, how much money could we potentially lose from the top up of 2019 and what the state has preliminary told you you're due in 2020, which is also subject, they have warned you, to a 20% clawback?
Okay, so what I'll do, I can tell you the cumulative rollover, and I'm gonna round it up, okay? So
Yeah.
it's about,
I'm not looking for
one-
exact numbers.
okay. Okay, that's 1 million plus about 250 plus 500. Okay, so the cumulative rollover balance is like 1.75. So if you take times 0.2, 350,000.
Okay, so that's our potential liability if the state does go ahead with 20% on the 19 top up and the 20 award, 350,000.
That's what if we had spent all of our balance last year, say we didn't have any rollover, right?
Yep.
Last year, and we spent it all, we wouldn't be subject to losing 20% of any of that, right? But since we didn't spend all of our award money last year, we left rollover money on the table, we could potentially lose out on 350,000. Do you see from that rollover?
I get it. Thank you.
But okay.
Yeah, that clarifies our potential liability in the from the state on that one program.
Right, but again, we're not going to spend more than 80% of the total award, so we should be in good shape. If anything, if they finally decide, because like they do sometimes, they say, okay, they'll let us know 5 months down the road after some federal bill is passed, okay, you're going to get your 20%. And at that point, it would probably then become a rollover because we won't be in our construction season. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So we would roll it over and spend it as part of next year's construction season.
I understand. Thank you very much.
So unfortunately, I believe we're actually at the end of our time for today. We have to start the next meeting. Unfortunately, could I get a motion to pass this?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cleary, second by Mr. O'Brien. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. We did have one last item on the agenda. You all have had this in advance. Are there any questions we need to have on this one, or can we also move item number 5, which is the agreement with Tracy Road?
Seconded.
I had a motion by Mr. Bergdorf, second by Mr. Peter. All in favor, say aye.
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 Good night.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your hard work.
Sorry.
Stay safe out there.
Sorry for all the
Appreciate it, Commissioner.
questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee.